My beloved child, something happened the moment your soulmate asked that psychic to look into your future, and it was nothing like they expected. At first, the reading seemed ordinary. A few quiet observations. A few possibilities about where your path might lead. Your soulmate sat there waiting for an answer, believing they would hear something simple about your career, your choices, or the life you might build. But then the psychic suddenly stopped speaking. Her expression changed. She looked again, as though she needed to make absolutely certain she had understood what she was seeing. And that silence became the most important part of the entire reading. Don't skip, because what made her stop wasn't something missing from your future. It was something extraordinary appearing inside it. Your soulmate finally leaned forward and asked, "What did you see?" The psychic didn't answer immediately. She simply said, "I wasn't prepared for who this person becomes." And in that instant, everything changed. Because the future she described wasn't about you remaining exactly where you are today. She saw a transformation so complete that even your soulmate struggled to imagine it. The person who had once questioned themselves would eventually carry a completely different confidence. The opportunities that once seemed distant would begin moving closer. Decisions that looked small today would connect like pieces of a hidden map, leading towards something neither of them expected. Stay till the end, because the biggest revelation wasn't about money, recognition, or success. The psychic said your greatest transformation would happen somewhere deeper. She saw you becoming the kind of person who no longer needed approval to know your worth. Someone who could walk into a new chapter without carrying every doubt from the old one. Your soulmate went completely quiet. They had expected predictions. Instead, they were hearing about a version of you they had never met yet. And then the psychic revealed one detail that made them ask the same question twice: "Are you certain that's really them?" The answer was yes, but there was another piece she hadn't revealed. Something huge is waiting for you, because she told your soulmate that your future contained a turning point they could never predict from your present circumstances. Not magic. Not an overnight miracle. A choice. One unexpected choice that would redirect everything afterward. And here is where the reading became even more mysterious. Your soulmate somehow appeared near that turning point too. The psychic looked at them and said, "What happens next depends on who both of you become before that moment arrives." Suddenly, this wasn't simply a reading about your future anymore. It was about two paths moving forward separately, changing quietly, and somehow approaching the same unexplained crossroads. Don't skip what comes next, because the psychic still hadn't revealed what she saw beyond that crossroads, and when your soulmate asked her to continue, she hesitated again. Then she said something they would remember long after leaving that room: "You're asking me where this person is going. But the question you should be asking is whether you'll recognize them when they finally become who they were capable of becoming." But what happened next made your soulmate realize the psychic's silence had hidden an even bigger revelation. She slowly explained that the future version of you wasn't simply more successful. It was almost unrecognizable compared with the person others thought they knew. Not because you became cold or distant, but because something inside you finally changed. The hesitation disappeared. The need to prove yourself faded. The doors you once waited for began opening because you had learned how to create your own opportunities. Your soulmate listened without moving, because suddenly they remembered every moment when you seemed quiet, every time you kept your biggest dreams private, every occasion when people underestimated what you could become. And then the psychic said, "That's exactly why the future surprised me. Everyone is looking at who they are today. Almost nobody realizes what they're building quietly." Don't skip, because your soulmate immediately asked the question they had been holding back. What exactly do they become? The psychic paused again. She could have answered quickly, but instead she looked toward your soulmate as though the next sentence carried more weight than everything she had already revealed. They become someone people once overlooked, and later wish they had understood sooner. That answer stayed in the room for several seconds. But it still wasn't the revelation that had originally made her go silent. Stay till the end, because this is where the reading took an unexpected turn. The psychic explained that she had seen one particular period in your future where several things appeared to change almost together. A new opportunity. A powerful decision. A different environment. And most importantly, a completely different understanding of your own potential. What looked like separate events were actually connected. One decision created another opportunity. That opportunity introduced another possibility. And suddenly, the future that once seemed far away began unfolding faster than anyone expected. Your soulmate whispered, "So they really make it?" The psychic answered carefully, "They don't simply arrive somewhere. They become capable of handling what arrives." That distinction changed everything. Because the future wasn't promising you an effortless road. It was showing the result of patience, growth, discipline, and choices nobody else could make for you. Something huge is waiting for you, because then your soulmate asked whether they would still be beside you when this transformation happened. And for the first time since the reading began, the psychic didn't immediately look toward the future. She looked directly at your soulmate. Then came the sentence that completely changed the meaning of the reading. That depends on what you do before they reach that chapter. Your soulmate's expression shifted. They had entered the room wanting information about you, but suddenly the questions were turning toward them. The psychic explained that your future wasn't asking anyone to chase you, control you, or predict every step you would take. It was revealing something far more important. Anyone who wanted to remain meaningful in your life would need to respect the person you were becoming, not hold you inside an older version of yourself. Your soulmate finally understood why the psychic had gone silent. She wasn't shocked because she had seen something impossible. She was stunned by the distance between where your story appeared to be now and where your choices could eventually take it. But wait, there was still one image from the reading she had deliberately kept to herself. One scene involving you, your soulmate, and a moment neither of you had reached yet. Don't skip. She finally decided to describe it, but before she did, she gave your soulmate one mysterious warning: when this moment arrives, everything will look ordinary at first. Pay attention anyway, because one conversation could change the direction of both your lives. What the psychic described next was so unexpected that your soulmate stopped asking questions and simply listened. She said the moment she had seen wasn't surrounded by anything dramatic. No grand announcement. No obvious sign telling either of you that something important was happening. It looked like an ordinary day, an ordinary conversation, perhaps even a moment that could easily be ignored. But beneath that simplicity was a choice that could redefine everything. In the vision, you were different. Calmer. Clearer. Stronger in a way that didn't need to be announced. Your soulmate noticed it immediately. They could see that you were no longer waiting for someone else to decide your value. And that was when the psychic finally revealed why she had gone silent at the beginning. I saw the moment they realized they'd become the person they once hoped they could be. Your soulmate stared at her. But she continued. And the strangest part is that they won't even realize how much has changed until someone from their past sees them again. Don't skip, because your soulmate immediately understood something uncomfortable. That person could be them. They imagined meeting the future version of you and suddenly recognizing every quality they had overlooked before. Every quiet ambition. Every hidden strength. Every dream you rarely explained because explaining it to people who didn't understand had become exhausting. Something huge is waiting for you, because the psychic hadn't finished describing what your soulmate saw in your eyes during that future conversation. She said there was no bitterness there. That surprised your soulmate more than anything. Instead, she saw peace, the kind that appears when someone stops measuring their future by what happened yesterday. Your soulmate asked, "Does that mean they forget everything?" The psychic shook her head. No. They remember. They simply stop allowing old chapters to decide new ones. Stay till the end, because those words changed the entire reading. Your future wasn't powerful because every difficulty magically disappeared. It was powerful because you learned what deserved your energy and what didn't. You became selective with your attention. More intentional with your decisions. More protective of your time. And somewhere along that journey, opportunities started responding differently to you because you were responding differently to yourself. Then the psychic revealed another detail. She said your soulmate had originally believed your biggest breakthrough would come from someone discovering you, choosing you, or giving you a chance. But what she saw was almost the opposite. Your turning point began when you chose yourself, not selfishly, but confidently. You stopped waiting for perfect timing. You started building before anyone applauded. And eventually, the results became impossible to overlook. Your soulmate lowered their eyes because suddenly they understood why the psychic's first reaction had been silence. She hadn't seen one lucky moment. She had seen a chain reaction. But there was one final detail about that future conversation that she still refused to explain completely. Don't skip, because this is where your soulmate heard something they never expected from a reading about you. The psychic said, there will come a moment when this person has two directions available. One leads toward something familiar. The other leads toward something completely new. Your soulmate immediately asked which path you chose. She smiled slightly but wouldn't answer. Instead, she said, that choice hasn't been written by anyone except the person making it. Then she revealed something even more surprising. Your soulmate would have a choice at almost exactly the same time. Not whether to control your direction. Not whether to stop your transformation. Their choice would be whether they had grown enough to meet you as an equal in that new chapter. Suddenly, your soulmate realized the reading had never really been about predicting a guaranteed future. It was about possibility, growth, timing, and two people becoming different versions of themselves before meeting at the same crossroads. Something huge is waiting for you, because just when your soulmate believed the reading was finished, the psychic reached for one final note she had written earlier. She looked at it for several seconds, then said quietly, "There is still something I haven't told you. When I first looked into their future, I didn't only see who they become. I saw what happens immediately after everyone else finally realizes it too." And this was the moment your soulmate had been waiting for, because the psychic finally explained what she meant by everyone else realizing who you had become. She said there would be a period when the change inside you would become visible on the outside, not through some impossible overnight transformation, but through results that could no longer be ignored. People who once misunderstood your silence would recognize that you had been preparing. People who assumed you had stopped dreaming would discover that you had simply stopped explaining every move. And your soulmate? They would see something even deeper. They would finally understand that the version of you they remembered was only the beginning. Don't skip, because the psychic said your greatest surprise wouldn't be proving anyone wrong. By that stage, you wouldn't even be interested in doing that. You would be too focused on what came next. That was what stunned her. She saw you receiving something you once desperately wanted, looking at it calmly, and realizing your vision had already grown beyond it. Your soulmate whispered, "They wanted this for so long, how could it suddenly not be enough?" The psychic replied, "Because sometimes you grow while you're waiting. And when the door finally opens, you discover it was never the destination. It was only the entrance." Then your soulmate asked the question that had quietly followed them through the entire reading, "Where am I when all of this happens?" The psychic became silent once more. Stay till the end, because her answer wasn't something your soulmate could simply accept and forget. She explained that she could see possibility, not a guaranteed script. There was a version of the future where your soulmate remained close enough to witness your transformation, but only because they had undergone one of their own. They had stopped expecting you to remain exactly as they remembered you. They had learned how to listen differently, communicate differently, and appreciate growth instead of fearing change. Something huge is waiting for you, because the psychic said the connection between you wasn't strengthened by either person becoming smaller. It became stronger when both people had room to become more complete versions of themselves. Your soulmate suddenly understood that the reading wasn't giving them permission to sit still and wait for destiny to do everything. It was asking a deeper question: if they wanted a place in your tomorrow, were they becoming someone capable of honoring the person you would be tomorrow? And that question followed them more strongly than any prediction could. But just when it seemed the reading had reached its final answer, the psychic unfolded the last piece of paper on her table. There was only one short sentence written across it. Your soulmate asked when she had written it. She replied, "At the exact moment I went silent." Don't skip, because this was the line she had hesitated to reveal from the beginning. She turned the paper toward your soulmate and explained what it meant. The most important thing she had seen wasn't a destination, a number, a title, or someone else's approval. It was you standing at the beginning of a chapter that your present self might barely recognize, realizing that every quiet step had been building towards something larger. And beside that image was one unanswered question about your soulmate. Would they recognize your value before the world made it obvious, or only afterward? Your soulmate didn't speak. Suddenly, they understood why this reading had affected them so deeply. But the psychic still had one final revelation, something connected to the exact choice you would face at that future crossroads. And when she finally explained what was waiting on the other side of that choice, your soulmate realized the biggest surprise of your future had never been who you become. It was what you decide to do once you get there. Then the psychic leaned forward and revealed the choice she had kept hidden. Your soulmate expected it to involve success, money, or some incredible opportunity. But it was deeper than that. She said, when everything begins changing for them, they'll have to decide what deserves to come with them into their new chapter. Your soulmate immediately became quiet. Don't skip, because this was the first moment they wondered whether they would still have a place in that future. The psychic explained that you wouldn't become someone who forgot the past. You would become someone who finally understood it. Every disappointment would teach you something. Every delay would sharpen your patience. Every moment you felt overlooked would quietly build the confidence you would later carry. And then came the surprising line: their greatest breakthrough begins when they stop waiting to be recognized. Something huge is waiting for you, because from that point forward, your path begins moving differently. Your soulmate asked, "Will they still remember me?" The psychic smiled. Some people aren't forgotten. But being remembered and being chosen for the next chapter are two different things. That sentence stayed with them. Stay till the end, because she then described your future self standing before an opportunity that once seemed impossible. This time, you wouldn't hesitate. You wouldn't ask whether you were ready. You would recognize that everything before that moment had prepared you. And your soulmate would finally understand something they should have seen much earlier: your quietness was never emptiness. You were becoming. But the psychic still hadn't revealed the strangest detail. She looked back at the final image and noticed something beside you, something that changed her entire interpretation. Don't skip. She told your soulmate, "I thought I was looking at the end of their transformation. I was wrong. This is only the beginning." Your soulmate stared at her as she continued, "Who they become next is bigger than anything I've shown you." And suddenly the original silence made sense. The psychic hadn't stopped because your future ended unexpectedly. She stopped because the future seemed to open wider the further she looked. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next thing she saw wasn't simply another opportunity. It was the moment your soulmate finally discovered why your paths had crossed in the first place.